Why the scholars conflict in three divorce? Some of them say three divorces one, some of them say three divorces three. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. This is something very important topic that I would really like to talk about that, and this is something I would explain that from the Quran, where Quran says in Surah Baqarah verse number 2 from 228 to 29 to 30 has all explanation about the iddah, has all explanation how is the divorce and everything. Now this is something very important, and I would ask all the brothers and sisters to please do forward this message to other people so other scholars can understand this also. According to the scholars of the sect, like a Hanafi scholars, or I don't know if the other scholars who accept the three divorce has been uttered at a one time is considered as the three or the one, and many sect scholars, all of them in ijma, they accept to be three divorces uttered at a one sitting is accepted as a three, and that region has annulled the marriage and that is no more exists. And there's other group who stick to the Quran, who stick to the Sahih Hadith. They consider as a three talaq and the three divorces uttered at one time. This is affected as a one divorce. Now let's say I am as a neutral. As a neutral, I'm going to judge this, and I'm going to understand the interpretation of the Quran from the Sahih Hadith, and then come to the understanding. And I will also ask the other scholars to please take a look into this one. When the Quran says at-talaqu marratan, at-talaqu marratan, when Quran says the talaq is twice or the two times. So I'm going to give a very logical explanations and examples on this particular topic, so all of you can neutrally judge that without labeling yourself belonging to some other sect, but rather you judge this and make an interpretation from the Quran. When Allah says at-talaqu marratan, talaq is two times or the twice. Now let's understand. I'm going to give an example. When Allah said talaqum marratan, talaq is two times. So according to the Hanafi scholars, they accept this two, talaq is two times, and if someone say talaq three times into the one sitting, that marriage has been annulled, it no more exists, and they have to do halala, and basically they're just destroying the families. Talaqum marratan means talaq is two times. For an example, now I'm going to give a very logical answer and the best interpretation of the Quran. When Allah says talaq marratan, talaq is two times. According to the Hanafi scholars, talaq marratan means talaq is saying is two times, and if you say third time, that marriage is dissolved and that marriage is ended by saying three times. But rather Allah is not saying by saying three times at a one sitting, but Allah is saying talaq is two times, not that talaq is two, saying two times at a one time, and then if you say three times at a one time at the one sitting, and that marriage has been annulled. But rather Allah says talaq marratan, talaq is two times. According to the Hanafi scholars, talaq marratan means if you say talaq two times, but if you say three times in a one sitting, that talaq has been ended. Now I'm going to give a very good example, and this is a very logical, and inshallah I pray to Allah that all those scholars who giving a fatwa and has been destroying not a thousand but a millions of families are being destroyed just because of these scholars. Let us understand something first. A human nature is something who gets angry, and after getting, some of them get less angry, some of them get like extremely angry, but some of them who get extremely angry, they just shoot, I give you divorce, I give you divorce, I give you divorce, just get out of my life. Next morning their temper goes down, they want to reconcile, but they go to the Hanafi scholar. The Hanafi scholars tell them, because you uttered the three words at the one sitting, so your marriages no longer exist. But let's compare this to our human nature. Human nature is something, when you shoot a divorce three times in a one sitting in anger, next morning you want to reconcile because your temper has lowered down and you want to go reconcile. Think about this. There's not thousands but millions of families has been destroyed because of these types of scholars who has given a fatwa that the giving a three talaq is a three talaq, and that marriage does not exist. Imagine this one. these people is not accepting that Allah is saying talaq marratan means a talaq is 2 times, but not something saying 2 times at one sitting, but rather 2 times in a different occasions. Talaq marratan, according to them, is saying if his husband says 2 times, and if he says 3 times in a one sitting. Now let us understand something. It's a human nature that a man and the woman gets angry. They fight, and the husband utters the 3 words. Next morning, their temper goes down. They want to reconcile. According to them, that her marriage is no longer exists. It's a human nature. You get angry, you cool down. You get angry, you cool down. But what if you just follow these types of scholars? So I would say not even a 10% of the married couple would live following these types of scholars. Now let me give an logical example what talaq marratan means. If I ask a student, now point to be noted, and I also request everyone to please pass this message on to those scholars who try to fight back, who try to justify that. Do not listen to these scholars, please. They are being destroying many families. They have many children has been destroyed, and the families are being destroyed just because of these scholars. By saying, I mean, like, think about this. Somebody is living a 15 years, 20 years of life with the family, and the husband gets angry, shoot a divorce. Okay, the family is ended now. That's it. Everything is ended in 2 seconds, in 3 seconds, the family has been ended. Now I'm going to give a very logical example. If I ask a student, how many exams do you have before final exams? He will say marratan. He will say marratan means 2 times. Now let's understand. Now try to understand this point. If I ask a student, how many exams do you have before final exams? He would say 2 times. Now 2 times is what? First term, midterm. That is the 2 times. Does the student mean that the first time and the midterm and the first term is together, or no? But rather he's saying there are 2 exams before the final exam, which is the first term, midterm, and then the final exam. Similarly, when the Quran says talaq marratan, that means that there's a 2 talaqs before the final. Before the final talaq, there's a 2 talaqs in the different occasions. So first term talaq, midterm talaq, and the final term talaq. So if you do the final term talaq, that is ended. But if you say 2 times, if you say exams is 2 times, that is 2 times in a different occasions. Okay, first term, midterm, and then the final exam. Now I'm going to give you another example. There's an employee working in a company, and he makes a mistake, and the boss tells him not to do this mistake again, please, or you're going to get in trouble. After some time, he makes the same mistake, and the boss tells him, I told you before not to do that, so I'm going to give you this last final warning. If you do it 3rd time, and I'm going to fire you. So after some time, he does the mistake for the 3rd time. Now the boss says that I told you what? I warned you before 2 times. I give you warning marratan. Now according to the boss, when he says that I give you warning 2 times, that he does not mean before firing him from the job. He gave the 2 warnings right before the final warning. So that 2 warning was before the times at the different occasions. If the boss says I gave you 2 times warning, but you did not listen, but now you're fired. Similarly, Allah says, At-talaq marratan, I give you warning 2 times. If you do that 3rd time, the 3rd time will finish and you are fired, and the relationship will be ended. And 3rd example, there is a son who makes a mistake. His father tells the son, do not do this. After some time, the son makes the same mistake, and the father tells him, I told you before not to do this, and you're doing it again. If you do it 3rd time, and I'm going to beat you up. So after some time, the son makes a mistake again. Now the father gets up and starts beating up the child. The father tells the child, I gave you warning 2 times not to do this, and you did it for the 3rd time, and now you are getting a beating. Does the father means I gave you warning 2 times marratan? Does the father means the time he beat up the son, did he warn him right before beating? or before he's talking about the occasions, the different occasions. He won one time, the time passed on, and the second time he won, and the second and the third time the warning goes on, and he did it third time, and that is ended. Similarly, when the Quran says at-talaq maratan, the talaq is 2 times at the different occasions. Now think about this example. The student, how many exams does the student have before final exam? The student would say 2 exams, 2 times. There's a 2 times exams. The first term, second term, and the final exam. He didn't say there's a first exam and the second exam, and the first term and the second term was right on the same day. First term, second term, and the third time, okay, boom, everything closed down, and either you fail it or you go to the next line. So similarly in the Quran, when the Quran says talaq maratan means 2 times talaq. Then if you do not, and then Allah gives then there is iddah of time. If somebody tries to give the talaq again, in the time that is not existed, but according, he has 3 months to think, to reconcile, to live with that with the wife or not. So he's going to issue a second talaq. If not, for the third time, Allah gives, okay, you have another time to think if you want to stay with the same wife or not. And then if you issue the third talaq, and the relation does not longer. Does Allah means that a student has the first exam, the first term, and the second term, and the third term exam all together on one time at the one sitting? No, that does not even make any common sense. This does not make any logic. Basically, all these Hanafi scholars, they are following their own buzurg, they are following their own elders, they are following their own scholars, which has nothing to do with the Quran interpretation. Because the Quran interpretation, do you think Allah is so zalim that he would just shoot up the blow of the family in a one shot, that somebody has a children, somebody has a family? And Allah knows that human nature. Allah knows that the wife gets angry and the husband gets angry, and when the husband gonna get shoot a talaq, and the next morning he will get to normal. But if you're going to this type of the scholars, they're going to shoot up and they will say, okay, the relation has ended. But according to the Quran, Allah says, I give you a chance again and again to think it. But according to the Sharia, the 3 talaq is not accepted. The 3 talaq according to the Sharia is not a talaq. Because the talaq according to the 3 in one sitting, that is according to the Hanafi, but that is not something from the Quran, because they have their own madhab, like a Deobandi madhab or the Barelvi madhab or any madhab, except those people who strict to the teaching and the best interpretation of the Quran, and those who accept the Sahih, who follows the Sahih Hadith, and then comes to the conclusion, okay, this is the remaining of the Quran. But these scholars, they are following their own they are following their own desires, but rather they do not want to change their fatwa, but rather they do not care about destroying the family. I mean, I give the very logical example that any ignorant person can understand that when if you ask a student, how many exams do you have before the final exam? He would say 2 times. He would say 2 times. But does he mean that the first term and the midterm exam at the same day on the final exam? Doesn't make any sense. This does not even make a sense, because it is similarly when the student goes to the next class, goes to the new class, his new life started in a new class. Similarly, when a husband and wife has been married, their new life started. And as the time moved on, as how the student is doing in a class, he's doing good or the bad, and that's how his result will be. Similarly, when the husband and the wife has a problem, when they start their new life, they have a problem, and when the problem gets the worst, then the husband decides to end up the relation by giving a divorce and give another divorce and think again. Now Allah is saying, I'm giving you a chance, I'm giving you a chance, I'm giving you a chance. Think again. According to the Sharia, this is not accepted. But according to the Hanafi scholar, this is accepted as a 3 talaq, and that relation is not no longer exists. Now, let's take a look at the examples that I give at the student, the examples about the student. The example about the boss and the employee, and the student about the father and the son. And I'm sure after listening to this type of examples, maybe I wish I will make a dua for them to may Allah give them a hidayah to open up their heart and not to destroy the families, or do not give the fatwa on destroying the families, but rather leave them alone to their own matter, but do not give the fatwa to destroy somebody's family. Because I'm giving a very logical example about, if you ask a student how many exams do you have before final exam, he would say marratan, 2 times. But is it make any sense? But this doesn't even make any sense. This doesn't make any logic that the student has the first term and the second term right on the day of the final exam. It doesn't make any sense at all. The person has the chances of the first term, then he pass it, and between the first term and the second term, whatever he's doing a good job, he's doing a bad job, then he gets a chance of the midterm to do good job or the bad job. And if he's still not doing good in the first term, not doing in a midterm, then the final exam and the final talaq is something which has another relationship. That's how the concept of talaq exists, of the 3 talaq. Now there's another question. If someone issues the talaq even a 1 or the 3 in a 1 setting, also the scholar has to very clearly go into the more deep on asking the question to the husband and the wife, how was the talaq was being issued to the wife? Was she in her periods? Was she or he in sanity, or are they aware, are they consciousness, or do they have their intimate relation before giving a divorce? Because the giving a divorce when they during the period of purity of women, when they have an intercourse, after intercourse, in that particular period, if someone issues the divorce after having an intercourse with the wife, that divorce has not been affected. And also, if a wife is in her period, that divorce is also not affected. She has to be pure, and the talaq has to be issued before making intimation, and before touching her, he has to think of giving a divorce to her. But during her period, when the intercourse is being done in the same, between 2 periods, they have an intercourse, that type of divorce is not also affected. So also the scholar has to ask many questions before giving the fatwa, before giving the opinion, even if the 1 is counted or the 3 is counted, but rather they have to ask more questions to the husband and the wife, then making their conclusion. So the whole topic, the whole point was telling about the concept of the 3 talaq is when Allah says talaq maratan simply means 2 talaqs at different occasions, as I has given example. So I'm sure this will be a very good example to understand, for other scholars to understand that and change their fatwas on this one. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.